Hello and welcome. My name is Gail Stout, and I'm with the Balanced Scorecard Institute. This is a brief presentation to answer the question, what is a balanced scorecard and how are organizations using this framework to improve results? As a leader, one of the main things that you've been charged with is to achieve results in your organization. So whether you're an executive director at a nonprofit, whether you're a president of a business, whether you're head of a government agency, you're expected to achieve results. And often there are things that frustrate you or appear to be barriers between you and the results that you're trying to achieve. One of the most common ones that we hear is, I can't tell if anyone's actually executing the strategy. We actually often hear this one quite often from board members who say, we know there's a strategic plan and management presents us reports periodically about various things, but it's not clear on if we're actually executing the strategy itself. Often there's a frustration because of the pressures of quarterly reporting. It feels like it's forcing you to focus on the short term and inhibiting your ability to make longer-term decisions and do things that will set you up for long-term performance improvement. Sometimes it's frustrating when the different parts of the organization and the staff within those parts don't understand and cannot articulate how they fit in and how they contribute. I actually had a gentleman call me a couple weeks ago. He was about 3 levels down from the president at a large publicly traded company. He runs a support services division, and he said, I hate going to corporate headquarters because if the president sees me, he's going to corner me, and he's going to want to know exactly what I'm doing and what performance I plan to achieve and how that's going to affect his financial results that he needs to report out. And because we don't have a balanced scorecard framework, I have a hard time showing him that connectivity. Alignment. Sometimes an executive will say, I think the reason we're not achieving results is just in my gut. I can't put my finger on it, but in my gut I feel like we're probably misaligned. We have HR implementing all these, new employee programs, and we've been totally redoing our supply chain, and we've got marketing and branding working on some new things, but I'm not sure that all these efforts are complementing each other and moving us toward a common goal. In fact, we may be wasting resources and working at cross purposes with each other. And then there's pressure, the pressure to keep achieving results, whether you're newly appointed and you're expected to come up with a 90-day plan and some quick results, or whether you've been there a long time, you're still expected to keep improving results. And so there's pressure to come up with new and fresh ideas. How am I going to do this? Sometimes an organization is pretty far along in being able to link strategy with execution, and I feel like they have a good handle on the results they're trying to achieve, but they're still struggling with measures. The executive will say, they keep bringing me these measures, but they're not helpful, and they're more tactical. They're task-oriented. Sometimes they're good outcome measures, but even when they're good outcome measures, they're not connected to each other. So I don't know collectively how these all fit together, and so it's hard to assess if we're making incremental progress towards the long-term results we seek. And often you're distracted by dealing with what I call one-offs or fighting fires, dealing with a product or a project or something that's going on, and having to have these conversations and discussions and decision-making in isolation instead of looking at them in context of the big picture, and because very few people understand the big picture. It's hard to get stakeholders and staff to really understand the big picture. Okay, so what do all these things have in common? They seem like very different problems, but the thing they have in common is there are symptoms of broken linkages, of a lack of connectivity between strategic planning or strategy formulation and strategy execution. And so a balanced scorecard is an integrated strategic planning and performance management framework. It gets you focused on results, and it connects everything together. So this is what's on the screen now is one of the more common graphics from a balanced scorecard framework. There are others, and there's other pieces and parts, but this is the part that most people are familiar with. So let me show you how to read this. At the top here for this organization is their vision, where they want to go long term, and their mission, which is their purpose or their scope of who they are. Below that are these things called strategic themes. There's usually 3 or 4 areas in which an organization must excel in order to achieve the vision, fulfill the mission. And each theme has a result associated with it. How will we know success? Where we see it. Now, a lot of people don't realize that there's another part of a balanced scorecard framework that's not shown on this one graphic, but there's other pieces that are connected in here. So these strategic themes, how they are derived is through a disciplined process, looking at things like the macro and micro environment and what are the enablers you can leverage and the challenges you must overcome, looking at customers and stakeholders, looking at the value propositions, looking at competitive positioning. There's other components back here that inform what these themes are simply going to have to be for your organization. Now over here on the bottom left is something called a strategy map. The strategy map tells the story of value creation, of how you're going to achieve these strategic results. Now let me explain a couple things about how to read a strategy map. These 4 horizontal lines are the 4 perspectives of a balanced scorecard. So you can look at organizational performance through these 4 perspectives. On the bottom is capacity. This is your people, their skills, your tools, your technology, your infrastructure, things like that. That's a driver perspective. And the one above it's also a driver perspective. It's your internal process. It's where you create value for your customers and stakeholders. Above that is the first results perspective. That's customer. Through their eyes, how well are you meeting their needs? And then you have the financial perspective. Are you achieving the financial results that you wanted? If you are a mission-driven organization, if you're a nonprofit or a government organization, you simply reverse the top 2 perspectives. You still have to be good stewards and achieve good financial results, but your ultimate top perspective, your top result has to do with delighting your customers and stakeholders. Okay, these things in the circles, they're called strategic objectives. These are the things upon which this organization must continuously improve in order to achieve these strategic results up here. And they're mapped in the story of value creation across the 4 perspectives. So you can actually read a strategy map. For example, if I say, why are we trying to optimize human capital? The answer is, so we can increase consulting knowledge sharing. Or why are we working to increase consulting knowledge sharing? We'll improve our internal efficiency and improve our customized customer experience. Well, why are we trying to improve the customer experience? Because that will directly increase profits. You can also read it the other direction. How are we going to improve the customized customer experience? By increasing acquisitions, increasing our consulting knowledge sharing, and improving our product and service offering, and so on. You get the idea. Over here on the right are performance measures. For each objective, there are very clearly stated results, intended results that we want to achieve. And because we're so clear about the results, and they're not shown on this graphic, that's another component, because we're so clear about the results, we can determine the most meaningful measure for this particular objective. And then when we're done, we end up with this system of leading and lagging measures by nature of having a strategy map. And then, of course, there's targets. How do we want to perform in each performance period? And then finally on the right are the initiatives. This is when we finally get to action. What things are we going to implement in order to execute this strategy? So it's all connected. So for example, the CRM system training would be a project, and why are we doing it? To move the needle on one of these measures over here that's tied to increase employee expertise. And why are we doing this? To optimize human capital. Why are we doing that? To increase consultant knowledge sharing, and on up. So you see the whole story of how this particular project is linked in to the entire strategy. So let's go back to those issues or barriers between an organization and the results it's trying to achieve. First one, difficulty in getting others to understand the big picture. This graphic, the one most people are familiar with, is an example of how you can show the big picture to various stakeholders. The strategy map in particular is a very powerful communications tool. Most employees can see themselves fitting into one of these objectives, and then they start to see the whole picture about how everything's connected. And it also gives you context, so you don't have to have these You'll still be fighting fires, don't get me wrong. Things still go wrong in an organization, but at least you have context for having those conversations and making those decisions. So if you're talking about a key process that's broken down, it's going to fit into one of these objectives. If you're looking at a poor performing project or an acquisition gone awry, it's over here in the initiatives column, and it's linked in through the measures to the objectives and on up. So you have context. You can now tell if people are actually executing the strategy. You can actually measure and monitor. You know, there's the measures that tell you if you're achieving the strategic objectives, and there's also the initiatives, their projects. So projects have their own set of measures. So you have a couple different levers here to ascertain whether you're executing the initiatives, and if so, are they collectively having the results that you wanted them to have? Are you meeting your targets? No more meaningless measures. Measures are developed in context of the results you're actually trying to achieve. You'll still have pressure to come up with ideas and keep improving results, but by helping others to understand the big picture, you'll be amazed at the ideas that they'll bring forward to you for you to consider, and you'll also be pleasantly surprised at how people will start to take independent action just within the scope of their own job once they understand what it is you're trying to achieve. They will help you achieve those results. Now, quarterly financial pressure won't go away, but now you have, again, context or connectivity. So you do have the financial results, but you also have the drivers of future financial performance mapped out here. We had a publicly traded company a couple years ago, a client of ours, and after they implemented their scorecard, there was some really big initiatives they wanted to implement down here for long-term capacity building. They knew in doing so that they would not achieve the quarterly financial results that Wall Street would want from them. But they decided to go ahead and invest, and they took their beatings for a few quarters, of course, but then as the results started to make their way up the map and performance started improving, they actually achieved phenomenal financial results, much better than they would have if they just been focused on quarter by quarter results. Okay. Now you can also cascade these scorecards to different levels in the organization. You can take a Tier 1 scorecard like the graphic I just showed you and cascade that down to different business units and all the way down to individuals. So even individual performance goals can be linked in. Now what does this do for you? Remember that when sometimes people say, I just had a feeling in my gut that we're misaligned? By cascading, you not only have a tight connectivity for vertical alignment, you also have the ability to look at horizontal alignment. So you can tell if these different business units are in conflict or if what they're working on is complementing the overall strategy. And you have this wonderful line of sight all the way from individuals through departments and units all the way up to mission and vision. So the gentleman in the elevator, if he'd had a balanced scorecard, what he could have done was been able to articulate, these are my initiatives. They're going to help me hit these performance targets, which are tied to these objectives, which are linked to your financial objectives. So that's how he would have had that line of sight. Okay, so using a balanced scorecard framework can provide the connectivity so that you can achieve results. So I have 3 examples on here of clients who have achieved results. The first one is a publicly traded company, Veolia Water North America. When they implemented the scorecard, they had tremendous opportunity but also tremendous competition in North America, and they wanted to position themselves for growth and for some transformation. So after implementing the scorecard, they were able to drive significant improvements in these sorts of measures here and, of course, ultimately improve their financial results as well. The second example is a federal government example. It's the Ministry of Health in Ethiopia. This was, when they implemented the balanced scorecard, it was to improve performance overall of the health system from federal agency all the way down to the actual hospital and practices that delivered the health services. Within about 1.5 years of implementation, they were able to improve performance such as reducing inpatient mortality by about 2%. They continue to measurably improve performance within the health sector. And the final example is a nonprofit The National Marrow Donor Program, Be the Match. Several years ago, they set out a big vision for themselves to achieve 10,000 transplants per year by 2015. But they knew that to get there, they were going to have to really focus and align and execute a strategy to get there. And I'm happy to report that they are on track to actually achieve that vision this year. Okay, so if this resonated with you, if you have broken linkages, feel free to contact us here at the Balanced Scorecard Institute. There's our direct contact information there. The framework that I presented to you and that we use to create these connections is called the 9 Steps to Success. It's a simple, step-by-step, easy-to-follow process to create the linkages so you have that connectivity between strategy and execution. If you prefer just to learn quietly on your own, we have written about this. It's in the Institute Way is the name of the book. You can get that at our website or from Amazon.com. So like I said, if this was helpful to you, if it resonated with you, please drop us a line and let us know. And thank you very much.